Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this media availability. Hello to everyone in person and online. My name is Andrew Urkamp, and I'm the communications lead here at the Archdiocese of Edmonton. We acknowledge that the Archdiocese of Edmonton is on Treaty 6, 7, and 8 land. The land on which we stand is the ancestral traditional land of the Indigenous peoples and is common home to everyone in virtue of God, our Creator's gracious gift.
My speaker for
Your speaker is turned on so they can hear everything you say.
Yeah, I got it on my packet.
For the past 3 years, national Indigenous leaders have been in dialogue with a small group of Canadian bishops. They considered how relationships between the Catholic Church and the First Peoples of Canada could be healed and strengthened. As a result, a delegation to the Vatican will take place from December 17th to 20th. Delegates represent the Assembly of First Nations, the Inuit Tapiriit Kinitami, and the Métis National Council. Further details of the delegation will continue to be made available through these organizations, as well as the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops. Travel and hospitality costs will be covered by the Bishops' Conference. As planning continues, it's important to note that the situation with the Omicron variant is being closely monitored in Canada, Italy, and the Vatican. Organizers are in contact with public health officials and Indigenous partner organizations. The Canadian bishops will adhere to any public health guidance that the government provides as the situation evolves. Today, we're here to introduce two of the three Alberta Indigenous leaders who will be among the delegates traveling to the Vatican. It's important to note that the delegates were selected by their own communities. Elder Angie Carrar, Gary Gagnon, and Chief Willie Littlechild are the delegates. Both Angie and Gary have been named as delegates by the Métis Nation. Chief Littlechild of the Ermineskin First Nation was named by the Assembly of First Nations. He cannot be with us today due to a previous commitment. Also traveling to the Vatican will be Bishop William McGrattan, the Bishop of Calgary and Vice President of the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops, and Edmonton Archbishop Richard Smith, President of the Alberta and Northwest Territories Bishops. Mental health support workers will also travel with the group in recognition of the painful sentiments that may be experienced by many delegates. The event today is your opportunity to meet and hear from the delegates. I've asked each of the delegates and bishops for a couple of minutes of opening comments. We will then open the floor to your questions. There will be an opportunity for one-on-one interviews after the news conference. And Angie, if I can get you to start, if you'd like to say a couple of words. Angie.
Good morning. My name is Angie Carrar. I have lived in Grand Prairie since 1966, which changed my life. It's been a wonderful, wonderful people that helped me, encouraged me, and supported me as people already found out that I had lived in social services. The children that it's hard to speak to me right now, so I just want to introduce myself. I am my children, my two little sisters. There were 3, 7, and now it's 8. But and we were out later when I was 18. Life is wonderful. I want to start to say that because it's the people. It's the people who are there. They're down. They see you, they recognize you, and they understand. A lot of people have helped us from residential school. So many of us have helped us, and not only to help us understand who we were people. We learned so much over the years to learn, to only understand, respect, but the biggest question, number one, was what in the world happened to us? What happened to us? There's so many other stories I will talk to you later, but that's important things that for our elders and our youth, for the last 50, 60 years, there's some of the girls that I've been working with, we all have the same questions. But life is what you're going to make it. Life is what you want. Takes a lot of hard work, and you never persevere. We're always remembered. Never forget. Never give up. Never give up. And so many, thousands of those residential schools did survive. So many of them are gone, but they are. I'm proud happy to see for these last 50, 60 years we have worked together. There's the three of us. We had nobody else. We learned that we needed us. So thank you.
Thank you, Angie. Next, we'll hear from Gary Gagnon. Gary?
Okay, thank you. And, good morning. Thank you for inviting me to this conference in a sense of to acknowledge who we are as Indigenous people that are going on a pilgrimage, I guess. And I wish to acknowledge the bishops. They anchor us. So thank you very much, and to our elder, Angie. And I do want to point out, but not to put her on the spot, but behind Angie, our elder, we have Audrey Patras, who's the president of the Métis Nation of Alberta, and I'd like to acknowledge her as well. And my name is Gary Gagnon. I'm from the St. Albert area, and I'm also the vice president for the Region 4 for the Métis Nation of Alberta. And also, just to mention that I do work with Edmonton Catholic School District in the Braided Journey program. And I've been doing that. I've been in that position for quite some time, so I just wanted to mention that as well. I was thinking maybe it would have been better to do this after we got back. I'm sure we would have a lot of stories for you. And I was telling the bishops here that I'm quite nervous to sit here in front of the cameras, and just in case that I get something wrong, but then I think, if I follow my heart, I should be okay, and it should be the right path that we're going there. And there's a reason why we're going there.
Yeah.
And that reason is because I believe God chose his most humble people, the children, to wake up the nation. And we're trying to give a voice for the voiceless by going there. I don't think I need to go into the history of the why of it, I suppose. All I know is that we have an opportunity as the Métis, and I can speak for the Métis Nation to some degree, that we are meeting nation to nation. Our nation is meeting with the Holy Father. I guess his entitlement over there is, I guess he would be the head statesman for Rome. in the Vatican City. So to have that acknowledgement is a great gift to us.
Yeah.
And we have our stories going there. And some of these stories are cemented. They're already done. But there should be new stories coming back. And that's what I'm hoping for, are the new stories. It's not easy for me. I'll say that much, because I feel very overwhelmed. Even though we have confirmation that the Holy Father will be coming here, I'm still very overwhelmed because I need to get the message straight. And I mean, we have a short amount of time, each of us as 8 delegations from the Métis National Council will be in there, but our time is a little limited, and we're working on those increments of times, and you know, I have a short window of time to get it right and to share some of the stories from this area.
Yeah.
Because in St. Albert, you know, there was relatives that we had went to day school in the convent, which was the Grey Nuns up on the hill by the big church. And I also, through my marriage, you know, my late father-in-law was in the St. Albert Industrial School, which is formerly located at Palmaker Lodge. So there's many stories that are coming with us.
Yeah.
Many stories. And we're going to miss some of those stories. But I know, I guess I shouldn't say I know, I believe that it's the right thing to do. Now, there was mention about the variant starting to come about in the world once again, and we've been living with COVID for quite some time now, 2 years now. But all I can probably say at this moment is that, you know, I just put that in God's hands. If we're still meant to go there, it will happen for sure. And but I know that it's day to day. So, but anyway, I'm starting to get kind of warm. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Bishop McGrattan.
Well, thank you very much, Angie and Gary, for introducing yourselves to those who are interested in this delegation that is planned to go to the Holy See. As the Vice President of the Canadian Conference of Bishops, we met in plenary in September, and the Spirit moved all of us as bishops to realize that this path of reconciliation and healing was very important for our First Nations, for our Métis, and our Inuit. And in that short period of time in September, we as the bishops offered a national apology, all of the Canadian bishops, because many of us, like Archbishop Smith and myself, have come to hear the stories of the pain and also the suffering. And as Angie mentioned, that yes, they received other gifts of learning, but also recognizing that their language and culture sometimes was suppressed, and that this caused great harm and suffering. And so the bishops have listened and continue to listen and have offered the apology. Archbishop Smith and myself have been directly involved in planning this delegation. And it is not without a sense that we hope that this will be both historic, but also a moment for all of our people in Canada, but most especially for our First Nations and our Métis. And as Gary mentioned, they will be bringing their own stories, but they also carry the stories of their communities. And we hope that as Pope Francis meets with each of these delegations individually, their heart, their stories, their pain and their suffering that both Pope Francis and the bishops who will be present will be there to listen and to respond and to make sure that we are committed to this path of reconciliation. As well, Gary mentioned, presently throughout the world again, we are faced once again with the adverse effects of this pandemic. I can assure you that as the Canadian Conference of Bishops, we are constantly in contact daily with the health officials, both here in Canada, with the agencies in the government, also with our national Indigenous organization leadership. Each day we're reaching out to make sure that we are discussing the implications of what might be. But at this present time, we are committed, like Gary said, to take and to accompany those who want to meet and to tell their stories to Pope Francis. And that, I think, is the most important thing that is part of this delegation. That healing requires this voice from the voiceless to be given. And I admire them for their commitment, even in the midst of what oftentimes we see as adversity in this pandemic. And so I continue to pray, as Gary mentioned, that in the providence of God, what we hope and plan for will eventually be the reality. For it is important, I think, for the members here present and all of those who are part of the delegation, that they have the opportunity to meet and encounter Pope Francis and to tell them the suffering and the pain, but also the joy and the hope that reconciliation can become a new reality here in Canada. And so I'm privileged to accompany them and to be with Archbishop Smith and to journey to encounter once again Pope Francis. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop McGrattan. Archbishop Smith.
Excuse me. Thank you, Andrew. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here at our Archdiocesan offices today. I want to say a special word of thanks and welcome to Angie and Gary. Bishop McGrattan too, of course, but Angie and Gary in particular. What I'd like to do is echo the admiration, the sentiments of admiration and esteem that we've just heard from Bishop McGrattan expressed regarding Angie and Gary. I expect we can all appreciate the amount of courage that it takes for the two of you, as well as the other delegates, to step forward into the public light the way that you are. You're stepping forward into the light, not just present here before the media today, but before all of the citizens of this land, to tell your story and to become known. That to me bespeaks a real commitment on your part to your heritage, to your people, to your awareness of the historic significance of this moment. You are representing your people on a pilgrimage trip to meet the head of the Catholic Church and to share with him your story. So we certainly as bishops, and I personally feel honored and blessed that I've got this opportunity to accompany you. You are leading the delegation. We are accompanying you. This is your opportunity to tell to the Holy Father your story, and in doing so, to do so on behalf of the people that you love, on behalf of the people that have gone before you, and on behalf of the heritage that you love and that you are proud to claim. It's a privilege for us to accompany you on this. What I'd like to share, just perhaps as an additional comment to what we've heard, is the perspective of the Holy Father himself on this. I've been meeting with the delegates now for quite a few times getting ready for this, and I've heard firsthand your excitement, the excitement of your colleagues that you've got an opportunity to meet Pope Francis. But I think it's also important to share that the Pope himself is really looking forward to this. The bishops have been preparing him for quite some time, and he's been really looking forward to this and to meeting the delegates. And as a sign of how seriously the Pope is taking this, all we need to do is take a look at the amount of time that he's carving out for the encounter. It's extraordinary. Now, from our perspective, an hour each might seem a little bit challenging to manage. But in the schedule of Pope Francis, it's rare for a head of state to get an hour with him. And yet what he is doing here, he's taking 3 distinct opportunities in his calendar to meet with the First Nations, with the Métis, and the Inuit delegates distinctly, separately, for an hour each, following which he will dedicate another hour for everybody to come together and to meet with him and to hear from him. So the Holy Father wants this to happen, and he wants to hear your story. And it seems to me that he's going to hear the story, yes, of pain and of heartache, but he's also going to hear, and we're seeing it reflected in the delegates, he's also going to hear the story of resilience and strength. You two represent resilience. When you think of what you've come through, or your ancestors have come through, and now you are here before us to tell the story, and not just to tell the story, but also to reach out your hands to the Holy Father and to others in this country to say, we want reconciliation, we want healing. That elicits, it seems to me, a sentiment of esteem from all of us. And to pick up on something, and I'll conclude here, to pick up on something that Gary said, he wants to speak from the heart. And this is going to be, I think, the nature, the essence of this encounter. Heart speaking to heart. The heart of the delegates speaking from their heart to the Pope. And we all know well the compassionate heart of our Holy Father. And it's with that heart that he will listen, and it's from that heart that he will respond. And please God, that will bring about, I think, an important impetus to the healing and the reconciliation that we want to see affected and helped by this journey. Okay. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Archbishop Smith. We'll now open the floor to questions. And there's a mic just right over there. And if you could identify yourself and the organization that you're representing and who you would like the question answered by, and if anyone else can answer that question for you. So first question.
Hi, Lauren Boothby with the Edmonton Journal and Sun. First question for Gary and Angie. What are you hoping to get out of this experience, and what do you want the Pope to know?
Oh, boy. Okay. What do we want? Okay. That's a lost question. It's something that we've been waiting for over 150 years. But to be able today, and to have an opportunity and to have, I can't grace strong enough, I can't say strong enough, it is how important it means to us when we reached the Pope talking to recognize me, to meet us. There's been a lot of parties that are going to Rome, inviting our children. They were, okay, I want to start back again here, excuse me. I'm getting a little, to be able, it's the people, our people, are the ones. It's time. Our children have had enough. They suffered a lot, enough. And when it was time for our elders and our youth and our people, it said, you know, they didn't say to the recognized, to the government, forgive. No. The people, our people, my people, we had time to think about who the most important person in the world could help us. And it happened. Slowly, surely, nobody is bounding, hounding and to our excuse me, our Pope. But the silence, the tears and the love and the hope, and we knew that sooner or later it's coming soon. Nobody ever actually, any elder or any chief, and said, this is going to happen, you know, we heard all about this, but you know, actually did not happen. It just did it, people together, just talking and praying together, just sharing. You don't jump around a big bridge and we're going to do this, we're going to do that, that's what we need to do. You do it with love and kindness. Our children, we deserved. They deserve to have peace, to have their names engraved. There is so much going on here, but we've always had faith. We never ever gave up, and we never ever will.
Thank you, Angie. Next question.
Well, I asked if Gary, do you want to also answer that?
Okay, thank you. I just want to acknowledge our elder. It's visibly noticeable how these stories affect her. And I also want to acknowledge that, you know, she's a what are you, 84, 85 now? 49? and to make this trip is remarkable. And we need our elders. They do have our stories. They do have that life experience. And I think, you know, we do all the footwork, eh? We do all the footwork possible, the interviews, the talking to our communities, the gathering of information, talking to the elders, you know, and asking for prayers going ahead of us, making sure that we are spiritually strong as well, you know. But I think the outcome is not in my hands. I can only hope that there will be movement from the words that we share from our heart. Because I think the narrative has changed now. We know that the Holy Father is going to come to Canada. We know that. So we don't have to, as I heard before, lobby hard or anything like that. He's coming. We don't know where, maybe. And I think that's probably one of the outcomes that I will look forward to, is to make a strong recommendation for this area for him to come. And also to bring forward those words that we've been looking for a long time, you know. And those words are quite simple. They, on paper, are easy to write out, but they're hard to say. Hard to say sometimes. But I think that's our goal, is to speak on behalf of our communities. And you know, and as much as I sit here and think, I got all this to say, this is what I'm going to say, I believe it's going to change when I'm in person with him. I think that the narrative will change quite quickly for me. And I can't honestly answer, I don't even want to predict. I know that we have a responsibility, as Angie said, as community members, and she's done a lot more than I've ever done in my life. And she continues to do lots, and is a great example for me. You know, I can only hope to keep up to her, you know, and, but we have an opportunity to do this right. And I do want to thank the bishops of Canada and the Catholic Church and for allowing us to continue to have relationships with each other. And I want to acknowledge that because I think it's important. And you do that by honoring us as Métis. I can speak for our nation a little bit. And I'm very grateful for that, because we do have our stories as Métis people that are not only were they residential students, but they're also day students. And we're very distinct, and we have our inherent rights as well in our stories through those experiences of the past. But I think in order to understand what had happened in the past, that's probably what's going to guide us for the outcomes in the future. And I don't want this to be a one and done kind of thing for me. I'd like to see an annual summit of some kind to occur. You know, I just think we have a wonderful opportunity here. I think God is really testing us, put a little bit of obstacle in our way in regards to the variant showing up right at this time. But I have faith, you know, that we'll continue and we will go somehow, I feel. So, and I just I want to leave it there. So I don't know if that answers your question in a roundabout way.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. And just one more question for the archbishops and bishop. So this is obviously a really important opportunity for the delegates that are going to speak with the Pope directly, but the diocese here and in Canada have known about the issues with residential schools for a very long time. And you've heard a lot of the stories from these people, you've been listening to them, but then earlier this year there were reports that there were millions of dollars unpaid by the Catholic Church to residential school survivors that other churches paid. So is there anything that your two dioceses can do, any actions you think you can do within your own cities to address some of the issues that you already know about, including financial reparations?
Thanks for your patience moving these back and forth. Well, I'll start, Bishop McGrattan, if you want to add some things afterwards. So, thank you for the question. Yes, of course, we've been in dialogue with First Nations, Métis, Inuit people for quite some time around this issue, whether it's here locally or across the country. Issues that, yes, we do take to heart. And let me share with you just a couple of things that we are doing as this moves forward. So, you may recall that following the plenary meeting that was held, all the bishops of Canada came together in September. We made a commitment together as bishops to raise over the next 5 years a total of $30 million as a national effort. A national effort that will play out locally through local endeavors. And so each diocese will commit, and we've started the process here in the Archdiocese, to reach out to Indigenous leaders to help us discern the needs that are in the community. Might there be some programming that exists already in the community that can be supported by the dollars that are raised? This is going to be unfolding over the next little while, but I think the key thing for us to keep in mind is that these efforts will be Indigenous discerned and Indigenous led as we reach out with the local communities to figure out how we're going to make the best use of those funds. Well, obviously, I think we all realize that the question of reparation goes beyond, the financial dimension. One of the things that I've certainly been engaged in, as have other bishops, is making the time to enter into what are often called sharing circles or listening circles, so that we, on a continuous basis, can hear directly from the people, their stories, their needs, and not only hear their needs, but also hear their giftedness. This is something that I like to stress. One of the things when it comes to the question of reparations that perhaps we don't always think about, often we'll think about the financial reparations, often we'll think about the healing of historic injustices, and we have to do all of those things. But what about the question, and I think this is probably going to be new for our country and something we need to move more deliberately on into the future. What about taking the time to listen to the giftedness of the First Nations, the Métis, the Inuit people, the Indigenous peoples of our land, so that we are challenged by their giftedness, so that we learn from their giftedness, learn from their insights, learn from their wisdom, learn from their sacred teachings, and learn from the fact that in spite of everything that has happened in the past, they are still reaching out, extending their hand in the hope of reconciliation. It's no secret to anybody that our country and our world at large needs reconciliation. We're suffering from fracture, division, inability to speak to one another, and so on. The Indigenous can lead the way here and show us not only that reconciliation is possible, but here's what it looks like. Think of the concern in our world right now for the environment and climate and so on. The Indigenous people, with their connection to the land, their respect for the land, learning from the land, listening to the land, what is that we can be taught by that? The refusal to eclipse the Creator, keeping alive the importance of spirituality to human essence, human being. How do we learn from that in a secularizing society? So, yes, there's the financial dimension, and the bishops are clearly committed to that, and we're working forward. But I always like to see the question of response to what we've been experiencing in far broader terms that include these other dimensions. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Bishop McGrattan.
Well, just to acknowledge that the bishops at that plenary did commit to 30 million, recognizing as well what has historically been identified, that they had failed as a church in the third part of that commitment. And so I think it's a sign of our renewed desire to ensure that healing and reconciliation takes place. And as Archbishop Smith said, yes, the financial commitment and allowing those funds to be directed to local communities is an important dimension of this financial commitment going forward. That our local communities need to receive the fruits of this sacrifice and this commitment that many Catholics will make on behalf of our diocese. But we also need to see this as only the first step. And he's mentioned many of the others that are important that go beyond just the financial commitment. But I hope that you understand that this is a renewed effort on the part of the entire Catholic Church going forward to make sure that our commitment is tangible towards reconciliation and healing through this financial commitment.
Dan Grummett with Global News. a fellow delegate, a former First Nations chief from Saskatchewan, said a couple days ago that they plan to, in their time with Pope Francis, ask for an apology when specifically he's in Canada, whenever that may be. As mentioned here, the Canadian bishops have apologized. So yes or no for you, Reverend McGrattan, do you believe Pope Francis should apologize for the Church's role in the residential school system when he visits Canada?
The offering of an apology, as has been stated, I think, by our First Nations and our Métis representatives, is a response that comes from the heart. And the response of Pope Francis, we hope, and I will be conveying my own commitment, that as a brother bishop, we, the Canadian bishops, together made our collective apology. And I believe that in the spirit of a brother bishop, that he himself will be moved by that and wish to, in a sense, be in solidarity. But to ask him, I believe that that's why we are inviting the delegates to be present, so that he hears the impact and the pain, and so that he understands that this is truly significant for the Church, for Canada, and especially for these survivors. And as we all know, and Archbishop Smith mentioned, he's a man of deep compassion. And in the face of human suffering, we all know that that response is a response that often wants to alleviate that suffering, to allow that pain to, in a sense, be lessened. And if words of sorry and apology come from the heart of Pope Francis, that's in the hands of God. It's in the hands of Pope Francis. And I hope and I pray that in many ways he will respond to these delegates and the stories that they are going to be sharing with him. To say that I believe, I pray and I hope that he will see the example of the Canadian bishops as we've come together, and as a brother bishop, he will stand in solidarity with us.
Just to let everyone know that for those on the live stream, we're going to take all the questions here from the reporters that are present. So if people are expecting it to be over at 11:45, we'll continue until all the questions are answered. Dan, sort of interrupt.
That's fine. Maybe just a follow-up for Gary and some of the words that you mentioned earlier. You talked about words that, being the goal of the trip. Is it fair to say that you really won't be able to evaluate the success, if that's the right word, of the trip until after the Pope visits Canada?
Just waiting for the microphones. I don't think I can share in what the Holy Father is going to say. I just hope that our prayers now that are gathering as we speak will be with us, and when that day will come and we meet with him on the 18th, the Métis delegation, through the Métis National Council, I can only pray that we will touch the heart of him somehow. And I think we have to a large degree now. I'm aware of the time that he's allotted for us. But in regards to predicting, I mean, I do want him to come to our area here in Edmonton. I do want to see him at Lac St. Anne pilgrimage site, which is just west of the city here. And that place has been a healing place for us for hundreds and hundreds of years. And there's no better place, I feel, for him to visit than that place, as an outcome or a predictable outcome. We know that when he's here, There's going to be a lot of planning wherever he may be. But I think at his age and showing the willingness to travel now for us is a strong commitment, irregardless of what may have happened in the yesterdays, you know. We need to go forward. There's no question about that. We acknowledge the past, but perhaps an elder told me one time, we don't stay there. We acknowledge it, we don't forget about it, but we have to move on. We got to learn to let go. And in regards to anything else, I mean, that's, I guess, you know, the interview would be a lot different if we came back. We'd be able to have these stories for you. And I hope we come back with great stories, powerful stories, commitment, positive outcomes, you know, good moments to share, not only amongst ourselves, but with everybody. Because it's not only the Indigenous Catholic that are affected here, it's the non-Indigenous Catholic people as well. I can't speak for the United or the Alliance, but I know as a Catholic person myself, you know, I have a wonderful opportunity and a big responsibility, like I said, to make sure those stories are, from what I've been shared, that are told accurately. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question correctly, but it's the best I'm doing for you. So thank you.
This is Bill Fortier, CTV News. This is a quick housekeeping question. Mr. Gagnon, if you're able to answer it, great, because the mics are there. If someone else needs to answer it, please let us know so that Richard over there can move the mics, the official mic mover. Just in terms of a timeline, I'm trying to get a sense of how this will work. So you have 4 days in the Vatican. Someone mentioned, I think it was Archbishop Smith mentioned an hour each. So does every single member of this 25 to 30 person delegation speak for an hour, or does the spokesperson, former Grand Chief Littlechild, speak longer? How does it work? And also, how do you translate? Because my understanding is Pope Francis doesn't speak English. So if you could just kind of take us through the timeline of how it all works, who speaks, and that kind of stuff.
Good, thanks. Yeah, thank you for the question. So we've got one large delegation, if you will, which is, I guess, close to 30 people in total. 13 First Nations, 8 Métis, 7 Inuit, and then some bishops that are accompanying them as well. And so we understood right from the outset that it would be really important for there to be distinct gatherings for each of these three groups. So within the 1 hour accorded to each, it will be 1 hour for everybody. So the 13 First Nation delegates will be together for the 1 hour, then the 18 Métis, 8 Métis, and so on. The delegates themselves, in some meetings that they're having among themselves prior to departure, are working out how they're going to make the best use of that 1 hour time. So they may each speak for 5 minutes, or they may each say we're going to have 2 or 3 spokespersons or whatever. And then at the end, the final encounter will be an opportunity for some prayer, for some ritual, to hear from the Holy Father, some response, and probably some gift sharing also. But that's how those three will work out. So they begin on the 17th and on the 18th. That's a Friday and a Saturday. Sunday is a break, and then it will conclude on the Monday, the 20th.
And just a quick follow-up to that, do you expect that we'll know when the Pope will come visit Canada by the end of this trip?
I have no idea.
Not sure.
No idea. Well, he'll want to talk to the delegate. That's what's so striking about this. Normally, when you prepare a papal visit, the Vatican apparatus will speak with government, will speak with the bishops. Now, they'll be a part of that, obviously. But here, the Pope wants to hear from the delegates themselves. Help me shape the visit and what it's going to look like. So I don't think we'll have any clear indication by the 20th what will be. I'd be surprised.
And sorry, just a quick follow-up for Mr. Gagnon. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You talked about words that are easier to write but harder to say. And once the mics are there, I just want to confirm what words you're talking about. Is it the apology that a lot of people have been asking for, or is it some other words? And again, if you just wait 2 seconds here. Thanks.
I think it's well documented in, I think it's called to Action 58 in Truth and Reconciliation, that, you know, when we know that for reconciliation to happen, we know there has to be truth and honesty ahead of that. And I suppose a lot of faith as well. And when we're asking for that apology, I think it's quite acknowledged throughout the three Indigenous political organizations in Canada, the ITK, the AFN, and the MNC, that I think there is nothing better for us to know that, to hear those 2.5 words, we're sorry, you know, and then just to move on. But we know it's hard, and we know that, you know, a lot of people have inherited this, I believe, from the religious end, the Catholic bishops, the clergy. They inherit a lot from the past, and I don't think for myself I'm blaming them. We know there's been several apologies that have gone on throughout time. I mean, I remember in 2009 there was a delegation that went over to Rome as well, an Indigenous delegation, and I do believe one of them will be on this trip as well, and that's Chief Phil Fontaine. He was there in 2009 with Pope Benedict, and he'll be here again with the AFN delegation. And I know they're going to be asking and looking for those words as well. And I mean, and what I'm trying to say is that sometimes it's hard to get it. It's hard to say, but when we can accomplish it, we're going to be better off for it. And all we're asking for is Indigenous people, whether we're Métis, Inuit, or First Nations, is we just want to heal and move on. That's all we're asking for. Never have I heard through some of the interviews that have taken place about compensation. It's all about dialoguing in the visit. That's what we want. That's what we deserve. We deserve that audience. And it's time. I think Creator waited long enough for us and said, now is your time. Now is your time to dialogue and to ask. Maybe we weren't ready 20 years ago. Maybe we weren't ready 30 years ago. But today we're ready. We're going now. And that's important to recognize. I mean, I could spend a long time trying to look at this question, but all I know is that, you know, in order to heal, whether it's in a marriage or a relationship, it's just to say, one person to say, we're sorry. That's all.
Before we go to the next question, Angie, you want to say something as well?
Thank you. A question we've heard about so many years. Apology for our people for how many years? It never ever worked because they were not true. They were not being truthful. They just wanted to say their name, just say, well, let's just say these Native people, we'll just be quiet for them. We'll do something for them and then forget about it. It's been going for years and we know it. And now you question our I'm sorry, I get so emotional because my Pope is very important. So many of us, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, for years have always reserved, have always honored. They were the father, our great winner. And when I got an accident here, when I was asked, I was coming to go to the Pope. Well, I totally lost for 3 years. I couldn't speak. I couldn't say a word. I was so emotional. It was too much. It was so important. And something that our hearts, our minds, the things we were taught for years, and then I like that question that Tony was talking about, apology for our you know, I was listening, and my heart was grieving. It was hurting. And all of a sudden, somebody else, I think Gary made another question, and it turned around. And my heart there just got I just got happy. Yes. Nobody, our Pope is very kind. He's very, very gentle. He understands a lot of people. He doesn't know who we are, but he's been finding recently, talking to stories about what's happening to our Aboriginal people. And here with my whole heart and soul, he invited to come to visit us, to hear his story. Yes, I do have faith. I have faith. We've been taught for so many years, but we do know for our faith, our love, our respect, and most of all, you know, the kindness we were taught since childhood, to honor our Pope. Our honor is the greatest person in this world. And that's why I just lost, I can barely speak. My language is not coming right. It's coming back slowly and surely, but I do have faith. And I will. For the last 70, 80 years, we've been talking about discussing what do you think we should maybe talk to our Pope someday? That's 60 years ago. But nobody jumped up and down and said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, come on, let's get this, get money on the government going, and they don't talk, we don't do things like that. It's from your heart, from your mind, your soul. This, to me, is so important, not only myself, the elders, and we're all, everybody right now, like they're peaceful. They're peaceful, they're joyful, they're, you know, because they know in their own heart of hearts. And I speak myself, I know my heart, my mind, my soul, it is going to happen. I really believe, I believe he is a kind, gentle, a mind people who would never, ever, ever let these children being destroyed, being lost, given away, lost forever. We needed somebody. We need somebody. And it's time for the answer now. We didn't need the government to come over to come give us an apology. It was just a farce anyway. But when you talk about the right person, a person of sincerity, a person of love, a person who would never, ever hurt, and especially his children, ever. Yes, I so happy, and I'm so grateful, and I feel so humble to have a chance to go to Rome, to bring back everything that we have lost, but build it stronger than ever before. You've got to have faith. You have to have trust. You have to have love. You have to have respect and kindness and everything, and that's most important of all. Always remember kind. Remember, there's some other people need more help. Just have a kind heart. Even have a smile. Hi, good morning, hi. It doesn't cost money. It doesn't cost money. But together, and together, our people, we know that our trip will be soon ended. And we'll then,
Thank you.
and then we start a new life. Working with everyone, working together, helping each other. It's going to take time. It's going to take forever. But it is going to happen. It's going to happen. And I believe with my whole heart and soul, and all the elders, and all my people that I've been working with for the last 40, 50 years I've been saying lately, it's time. And I trust them. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Just a bit of housekeeping. We're going to take the two questions here in the room. We'll take one question from online, and then we'll wrap it up. There will be opportunity for one-on-one interviews. We're just going to give everybody a 5-minute break afterwards. Next question, please. Thank you.
Hi, Taria Isri from CTV News. This question is for Reverend McGrattan. Earlier today, when you were speaking about residential schools, you said that there were some gifts and that culture was sometimes repressed. And I just wonder how you can say that, given the fact we know how widespread the abuse and the devastating consequences were in this country.
From the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, what we've come to know as Canadians and also the Church, that both the government and the Church were complicit in the residential school system. And we've come to have a greater awareness, especially through the witness of Angie and others, of the impact that that's had, not only in the past, but presently, and what they are concerned about is the future. And so, yes, I have acknowledged that, and I did say that. I have also, as we've heard from Angie, that they, in that experience as well, recognized that they had the opportunity to learn. But in that learning, we also acknowledge the fact that their culture, sometimes their spirituality and their language was repressed. And that is not something that we want, nor should it have happened. And so I do acknowledge that.
I guess I just wonder how we can say sometimes, and how we can even equate that to learning when those schools were not schools.
Well, presently in our own educational system, we have come to realize that this is an important part of the curriculum, understanding our history and making sure that our current students understand that as well. And so that's what I'm trying to impress here, is that we do recognize that there was a devastation and an impact on that generation. And that currently in our own educational systems, that we make sure that our students understand that in terms of a historical perspective.
Hi, Mathieu Goyer with the CBC Radio-Canada. Question for Gary. From listening to you, I recognize you're a man of faith, of deep faith. My question is how you reconcile or balance your Métis identity and your Catholic faith, knowing the role of the Catholic Church and the residential schools. How you reconcile your faith and your identity?
Well, for the last question, that's a tough one. But I mean, I think if I look at the history of the Métis people, especially in this area, we always had a strong relationship with the Catholic Church. But also, you know, that relationship, when you say the Catholic Church, I mean, it's the people that make the church. It was the Métis that made the church in St. Albert or Lac St. Anne or any of the areas where the Métis had lived in the province. I mean, like Angie said, our faith is unwavering. It's strong yet today, and you know, there's a lot of good, and if you look for it. Of course, we have this past, but I heard it said one time. There was a gentleman I was listening to. I don't know if this will be relevant at all, but he said, you know, I was blaming the wrong thing for a long, long time. And I said, well, what was that, sir? And he said, you know, I kept blaming the United Church or the Catholic Church. I was blaming all the churches all the time. But really, it was the individual I needed to blame. You know, it wasn't so much the good words that come out of our Catholic teachings or what we hear on Sunday in the homilies or the readings that are present during the Mass. It was the individual that caused the chaos, you know. And I thought about that, and he said, once I started to recognize that, I realized I was just blaming a building. And And it wasn't so much that, it was, I really needed to blame the perpetrator. And I thought that was quite a big wisdom to share, you know. But in regards to me and being a Métis person, and I mean, I grew up on faith. We were shared with that. We were taught that. And, you know, we acknowledge that we are Métis. And, you know, we, like Angie said, we do have our stories. And, you know, the only story I can tell is my story to a large degree, and because I don't have a permission to tell Angie's story, but I can share mine. And I will do that. And I will speak on behalf of some of the people, like, you know, I think it was mentioned, education was mentioned here. You know, and I want to quote Murray Sinclair, who was part of the TRC, and said that education was what got us into this situation. And it's going to be education that will get us out. I'm not quite sure if that's the exact quote, but you as journalists and people, and I'm sure you can Google that. But it's a strong quote, and that's what we're trying to do as well. I mean, being Métis, it was talked about in our last meeting here with President of the Métis National Council, Cassidy Caron, and we had mentioned, you know, that we need to share our history as Métis people. It's documented, but maybe it needs to be more documented. And we always had a beautiful relationship with the church to some, you know, in a large degree as Métis people. I mean, you just have to look at the history of St. Albert. And the oldest building in Alberta is that white chapel made out of logs sitting on the hill. You know, it was the Métis people that built that. We labored, we took down the trees. You know, we took the broad axe to those logs and we made a chapel for our people. We just wanted to honor Creator. We just want to honor God. That's all we want to do. We didn't realize there was going to be complications with that later on in life, but you know, I guess that's part of our history. And in order for us to go forward, late Dr. Ann Anderson, who is actually from St. Albert and a beautiful Métis lady, said in order to know where you go tomorrow, you have to understand where you came from yesterday. And that's what we're doing. We're bringing those stories, and hopefully, you know, that we'll have a positive outcome from this moment that we have at the highest level, you know, which is Pope Francis. And I'm deeply moved in some ways, because not only do I look at him as the leader of all the Catholic Church, I look to him as a bit of an elder in a holy man in a lot of ways. So when you ask me the question about the duality of my Indigenous faith, or being Métis and being Catholic, you know, we have a great respect and love for our elders, and we do. We have a beautiful one right beside us with Angie, and you know, how more fitting can it be? You know, it's that kind of a relationship what we're trying to foster over there, and to grow it. And like I said, I don't want it to be just a one-time thing. It needs to occur a few more times, and I hope we're part of the planning, as Archbishop Smith had said, that we as Indigenous people will be part of the planning of him when he comes here, and that it's not going to be just one-sided from the Catholic Church, but we want to be included, whether we're First Nations, Métis, or Inuit. We need to be part of that, and I would only hope that we will be. So anyway, I'm not sure if I'm answering your questions, but thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll take one question online, Lincoln, and that'll be our last question.
This question is from Michael Swan from the Catholic Register for Ms. Queer. Do the Métis have a distinct or different ask than the AFN or the ITK?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Do the Métis have a different ask or a distinct ask than the AFN or the ITK?
Oh, boy. We were taught as my grandfather and my dad, they were all very strong Métis people. And they were very, very strong, very hard-working workers, and they always helped other people, but they also were not afraid to speak out. They'd say, somebody would come up to, I remember, I think about 6, this one chief walked in, and he was being very negative, being impolite. And my dad, and we were kids, there were 7, 8 of them, and my dad spoke him, let's go outside and talk. And my dad tried to come out, and then he started hitting on my brother. I was only 16 years old. And Dad finally grabbed him, and they went away. And then 2 days later, RCMP showed up. And anyways, I don't remember everything, but I do remember that big chief came in and had taken in prison. It was a very bad thing, and my mom always spoke out. You guys, you listen, you believe, you know what's right. You are Métis people. We used to, those days, we didn't call them Métis then, but we were the same nation. To understand, for many difference, like many times, they always didn't get along. And I know, but over the years, so slowly but surely, one of them said, oh, they're too arrogant. I didn't even know what that meant. But lately, in the 30s and 40s, there was a lot of people misunderstanding. And that's why the Métis start moving into different little vacations on the different lakes and stay away from other people. So the Métis had their own places to have peace. I know, but lately we've been working together. I know I'm one of them, that we've had a lot of meetings. Not always, doesn't always work, but slowly but surely, we're coming slowly. The time is time to work together. We've always been so separated, all 3 people always being suited, not only have other people making decisions for them, But slowly but sure, the last 20 years for sure now people are start helping each other. And it's so wonderful. Like, I don't go to them, oh, look at this. Yeah, we don't do that. We help each other. And I want that to happen, because the only way we have to learn to work together is when we can really, really have peace and grateful and be respectful to each other. Little by little, it's going.
Thank you. Angie, that's a great sentiment to end this portion on. Thank you very much to Angie, to Gary, to Bishop McGrattan, to Archbishop Smith for joining us today. In the Edmonton Archdiocese, there will be a Mass of Commissioning on Sunday, December 12th at St. Joseph's Basilica at 7 p.m. And additional events will be announced in the coming days. Just lastly, we're all keenly aware of the historical importance of this gathering with Pope Francis, and so we rely heavily upon your support and your prayers, and thank you very much for coming. So God bless.